Anglers of the Internet, welcome back to another Advanced Kayak Angler podcast brought to you by Fishing Online, fastest shipping on the Internet. I'm your host, Kurt Smits. Please like, subscribe, and share with your friends. Now let's get into it. Welcome back, everybody. Another week, another podcast. This is going to be a good one. Got Steve Owens coming on to talk about managing a kayak fishing team. We all know that in competitive kayak fishing that there's a lot of teams out there, but we don't always hear about the back end of the story, the work that goes into it and stuff. And, you know, there's just a lot to it that we don't hear about. And we're going to hear some about that from Steve. We also just had the Bassmaster Kayak Championship. And, man, it was a slugfest. Let's bring Steve on to talk about it. I'm excited to hear. Steve, welcome on, man. How you doing?
I'm good, man. What about you?
I'm doing great. So, I just mentioned the Bassmaster Kayak. It's championship. Is that the right term for it? Some people want to call it the Classic, but it's not the Classic, though, right?
Right. It's the Bassmaster Kayak Series Championship, but we fish it during the Classic. So, yeah, it's that was something we kind of. The Classic's the Classic. You know, it's its own deal, and it's for those elites. And luckily, you know, the rest of the fishing levels get to be a part of that too, which makes it great. So it's not an insult that we're not called the Classic. It's just, that's just the Classic is the Classic, and our championship gets to be with it. So.
And what a slugfest, man. I mean, what was it? 16 places with 100 or more inches?
Yeah, 16 with 100. And it was because Merlin Hammer and Christine were right there. And Merlin, you know, do you know Merlin?
I do not.
Oh, man, Merlin, he's, you know, from the Indiana area, I believe. And, you know, just watching him when I started working full time with this again, you know, he's a dude that came in and he has just gotten better and better every year. Cost himself big bass on Possum Kingdom last year. He had his identifier completely covered because that fish was freaking massive. You know, yeah, we couldn't see it. You know, and so but it sucked to have to tell him that, and then turn right around this time, and he came to check in because I always text everybody that's in the money. To come and get pictures, and that way you guys can hit the road. If you're not, you know, give you a little bit of leeway where I can. Well, he went ahead and came on, you know, because he had 100 inches. He's like, you know, and I was like, I could just see. I was kind of like, brother, you didn't. Sorry, man, you were, you were second out of the money because Christine had him on big fish. But yeah, so we.
You know, that's really impressive, though, man. I mean, that's the top end of the top field of anglers in the country. I mean, there's a lot to be respected in that. Even though you're out of the checks, you're still right there, you know.
Right, and it's you know, it would obviously we all want to see, you know, what we could have done with the anglers could have done rather with 2 days of fishing, which is what we always want. But it was interesting. Me and Daniel were watching adding that extra time because the anglers had to be off the water for a day, which I think is cool before they actually got to fish. Not that we're going to that in any kind of way, but those anglers had that extra 3 hours because you had to refigure out your bite again because the wind changed to a different part of the lake. The water got muddied up really bad from all the wind and stuff, and it was still windy. But that last couple of hours of the day, the standings changed drastically. And it wasn't that, you know, you uploaded your fish later. It literally where people started catching them more along about 1 or 2 o'clock. So if we would have just fished an 8-hour tournament, that top leaderboard would have been drastically different. And so that was pretty cool too. So.
Because, you know, I mean, how many times do you start figuring the bite out and it's the end of the tournament, right?
Yeah.
And these guys had how many extra hours? 3? Is that right?
3. Yeah. We fished 11. That way we wanted to fish 12, but by the time they got back off the water, it would be, you know, pushing hey, you got to turn your lights back on, which could end up, you know, setting somebody up for failure. I mean, you're supposed to remember that stuff, but you may not. And then we needed to get them back to the check-in so that Mark could get some good pictures. And we just made it getting light enough to have pictures. So that was pretty cool that it landed
Yeah,
there. So
it's now the biggest event in kayak competitive kayak fishing. It's a who's who. Really, I mean, it's who qualifies for that. It's a who's who around the country.
yeah, and what I like about it is it's unique in that I mean you can make any championship 30 anglers if that's what you want to do. But when you do that, your trail series can suffer some when you feel like, hey, I don't have a shot. If you're traveling now, if it comes to your area, then you're going to still jump in because you're competitive. But with us, you make it in from the opens, and then you get your Angler of the Year standings from the Dakota Lithium Angler of the Year standings, and then you make it from your Bass Nation Championship. And you know there's some people that kind of want to try to maybe discredit sometimes because they just don't understand it. I don't think, but your championship in your Bass Nation, I mean, that's people who qualified off of merit during the season. So just because there's a third way to come in, it's not a lot of anglers. And if that's what if you think that that's easy, then you just try that because then you just put all your eggs in one basket and you got one championship. Like if you go, let's just say to West Virginia and have a championship there, and you got Jody and Abby and
Right.
all those guys and yourself, you'd probably drive over. I mean, you go to that one and think you're going to get, say they got 50 anglers in it and you're going to be one of those 5 that get to go. You're probably going to be disappointed and you'll be sitting at home watching everybody else fish for a championship. So I think that's a pretty cool thing. And as the nation grows, people tweak it, because the states have their own sovereignty, and people want it. Like Cody Prath brought up a really good point one time. Because people at the beginning were like, hey, we want 200 in here so we could send 20 people. Well, we can't do that because then that waters down the field. Like, why would you come and spend X amount of dollars to fish an open if you could just stay home and get one of those lucky 20 spots? So we tinkered with it and made it where it's 10% of the field. So there's not a lot that comes out of it. And so when you make it there, you did it on your own merit because you fished in a championship that meant something in your own state. So they're not like, and we don't do roll downs there either. So if 5 people qualify from Tennessee and those 5 people accept those positions, if one of them backs out, that spot's gone. So that, and I put a deadline here where you have, X amount of time to confirm your spot, or I will go to the next person. So that if you don't claim it, then I will go to the next person. But if you claim that spot and you can't not answer me, because if you skip that answer, then I'll skip you. And then, now you've lost your spot. So I feel like that's the balance with Bass Nation being a part of it. Is to make it where there are no roll downs of that caliber, or that situation. So
I like that, man. And really, this is leading us all to the topic of today's podcast here. So with competitive kayak fishing comes kayak fishing teams.
mm-hmm.
And what a lot of people don't realize, that they see a kayak fishing team such as the one you manage, Dugout, and they think, man, look at those guys. They get everything for free, or there's just a lot of different misconceptions, and they don't think that these guys, some people I've heard, you don't think that you work for it, and I'm like, even if someone gives you something, sometimes it's not free, because you're giving up your time to help do something else. And I'd love
Right.
to touch on some of these topics with you because you manage one of the most successful teams out there, Dugout's team. And, I got a lot of friends on the team. They all seem like really good guys. It's a huge, super professional. So let's talk about them a little bit. And why don't we start kind of, how did the team start and how did your beginning with the team happen? Did the team come first and then they brought you in, or did they bring you in and then the team grew from there?
It started. Give me just a moment here. Okay. It started. Golly, I guess what is this? 2025. Was it end of 2020 or end of 2021? I had, like I had fished, all the Hobies, all the KBFs, made the TOC, did this and that. And I wasn't bored. I was just tired. We had already started the Bassmaster series, and then I didn't have enough time to stay in it. And, I'd just kind of gotten burnt out. There were some changes in the industry that made it where I wasn't with certain companies anymore. And I was like, you know what, man, I'm putting a lot of time in this. I'm just going to put my head down and I'm just going to work and put up all my money and retire early. And so, um, I was pretty much just kind of done. And then so AJ McWhirter got a hold of him. One of our best friends lived right up the road from us, and he said, "Hey man, you love marketing, you love tackle and this, that, and the other." He said, "I want you to meet somebody." And so he introduced me to Jamie Koza at Dugout, and went down there and met him and his wife, and then my wife ended up coming down, and I just decided, I want to help AJ sell kayaks while I'm in this, and just work with my buddies. That's what I decided I wanted to do, was just work with my buddies and help them be successful like he does us. And so I joined Dugout. They had already had a couple of Hobie members. They had, I think, Clint Henderson, Andy Middleton. That was the first two. And I think that was about all they had on the staff at the time. Now they had just started, so it wasn't anything, and or not. There was something there, but it just didn't. They had just gotten it off the ground, because every shop has a pro team, so to speak. And so Jamie and I sat down, and he had a vision with Dugout's reputation in the bait and tackle industry. They're a heavy hitter on the East Coast, especially, and he said, that's what I want this kayaking to be. That's what I want to do with it, And so we went through the steps of, you got to have this, you got to have that, and we just started looking. And what he said, and I mirrored it, and I know you can relate to it, is we've got enough discount codes. We do. I mean, you get a discount code for every sponsor, and that's great. Those are really good things to have, because most of the time when you get a discount code, it's from a person you're working with that needs that money to make a living and to keep the business going. So I'm not crapping on discount codes, but we wanted to be different in that we have these relationships with, Rather Outdoors and Pure Fishing and GSM and Shimano, Daiwa and Don Coffee and all that. And so, it was, we want to be, if we can, the first people that actually help kayakers, other than the anomalies who put themselves out there and work super hard to get it on their own. Kayaking is still new, and it still is today, in the fact that a lot of anglers don't know how to get sponsorships of things. And so we set out to where, you're Kurt Smith, you like St. Croix, you like this, we'll work with our reps, and you get X amount of product for free a year, as long as you market and do your job. And then eventually you take that relationship with that rep and you turn that into, hey, here's what I've done for you. They see the return on investment, and then they start giving you a check every year to cover entry fees or stuff like that. And so we built that, and it was at the prime time. It was, when COVID was rolling around and everything, and we we were able to make that pretty successful. We got a lot of partnerships that are still there today, and that was our goal in it. And we wanted, integrity people. I mean, you can have hammers all day long on your team, but it's just kind of like, if nobody likes you, they don't care what you say, you know. And so a lot of things are popularity contests in the world, and so we just continue to build it and grow it. And we got people that are, upper echelon of the kayak world. We've got people who are local hammers. We've got people who are just doers in the kayak industry, and they help us sell product, which is what it's all about. And we just tried to keep the mindset that, yes, you're on a team, but you deserve compensation for what you give. And, obviously most everyone, gets things at cost where we can. Electronics are out the window. There's no margin on electronics. So, and it was just, Jamie and them, because his kids grew up fishing, and his wife and them, they're a big part of Mount Perrin Christian Academy's team down in Georgia. That's a very, very successful team. So they've always been part of fishing culture, and they really embraced the kayak world, and that's what they wanted to be a part of. Jamie started traveling and fishing and fell in love with it even more. And so that's just how that all evolved or opened up and then evolved.
Man, that's really fascinating how you got it structured to help develop the anglers. Because I know when I first got into this, I had a little experience from another sport, but fishing world is very different when you go about trying to get sponsorships. I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of things crossed over from different sports and different industries, but man, it is a lot different, and just how things are structured to get sponsored in the fishing world. And just hearing you talk about how you're developing the angler so they can take it to the next level and continue on and grow from what you're showing, it's just a really interesting concept. Now, is that something that like you and Jamie sat down to do, or is it just kind of happen organically, or I'm just really interested in the mindset there. It's killer, man. I love it.
Well, a lot of it, I mean, there was a purposeful intent in the beginning. Um, but that wasn't what we set out to do. But we quickly saw that you don't know what you don't know. And Jamie's been doing this for 40 years or whatever. And, I mean, you've got, Aaron Martins and who's who comes through that shop all the time. And then all of the top industry reps. I mean, we have Shimano Japan coming over for orders and dinners and stuff. And that's pretty exciting. So when you've got that kind of knowledge and he's just slinging things out there, we saw pretty quick that the boat world they go through not necessarily go through the motions in a negative way, but they're used to this. They have this culture. We have people like Jody and Christine and some others and yourself. You've got Fish Online and St. Croix and all that and Hobie. You all got some sponsorships early on back in the day, if that's what you want to call it. But by and large, most people don't know how to do these things. And that's what Jamie saw. He was like, um, there's a lot of frustrated anglers out there because they keep being told no, but they don't get told why there's a no. And it's that it's not about cashing checks all the time. It's about who you can bring into your respective shop. And that's the most valuable person. And having said that, we got anglers that come in, and we got people that come in and buy things, and we don't know why they came. They may have came because Jesse Halverson down in Alabama mentioned something to them, and then they just decided to drive over. But a lot of times people just don't, they don't say, hey, Kurt sent me in here to buy this, and so we lose that. But that's where us being a close knit group, we communicate with one another. So we kind of do know, he says, hey, my buddy's coming down next week, and kind of get a heads up. That way we can make sure, because people want to meet Jamie, or if there's another angler they want to meet, we want to try to make sure that they're there in the shop when you come, because we got people driving from, we had people come from Montana and bought 4 fully rigged kayaks and a trailer. And you need to be there to meet those people when they come in, Same way we got people that come down from Maryland just to get, live scope and things rigged on their kayaks. And you want to make sure that they get to meet, whoever they want to meet on the team. So we try to work that out too. But because, there's a little bit of celebrity in our sport, but the biggest thing is the customer service aspect of it. And most of all of our anglers are very familiar with not all the products that we sell or market, but you got to have those people who are in the DMs or looking through, our TVKA grassroots page and see somebody that says, my rudder just broke on such and such. Well, if you shoot them a message offering a little bit of assistance, number one, that's what you should do because we're part of the community. But number two, they remember that. And then when they need, a bumper guard or something, they're going to order it online, and that's just how you keep your customer base engaged.
I think this is a really good time to point out that was some juice for anybody who's looking to be a pro staffer or working with a team on exactly what you need to do. And you basically need to do everything Steve just said. And when Steve says you message them, I've been doing this for a while, and I find that is like the absolute best way to reach out to someone on a personal level and help them and give them a small amount of guidance and then help them to show them where to get something. Uh, and from I do it for my sponsors, and I also do it when it's not my sponsors because I'm just trying to help someone. But that is like the best way to get it, because you get bombarded with like 15 million messages when someone asks like where to buy something. And when you reach out to them and give them some advice, like maybe how to install it, right? If it's a rudder cable, that's a little technical on a Hobie. Man, just the pro staff guys, if you're listening, that is exactly the stuff you need to do. That's some juice that he just gave away.
Yeah, because you'll end up saving people a lot, and that's the thing with us is, we don't want to sell you everything. We want to sell you what you need. Because you know how easy it is to buy and buy and buy, and it's not what
Yeah.
you want or need. And you can get there was a lady that lives here on Lake Chickamauga that fishes with us, and she can catch them. And she's got a Hobie that's she's wanting to redo her foot steering on it, and we were going through the things, and man, she probably had about $280 worth of stuff that she didn't need. So I got with Jamie, and Jamie said, "Here's the A, B, and C that she needs," and so that's what she got. And could have easily put that on her, but people will appreciate that because they'll come to you and say, like, I got a guy in my messages now that I'm building a package that he's getting ready to order, and it's not a lot, but I think we probably knocked off about $110 of things that he doesn't need that he thought he would need to put a motor on, and that's what people remember. And
Customer
so that's
service.
why, yeah, and that's it, and those people, then you make a connection, and then the next thing you know, you got a friend, somebody to eat a burger and drink a beer with on the road that you might not have ever had, and that's what matters.
Yeah, yeah. And it's and that's one of the neat things about our community and kayak fishing. I feel like that we're generally speaking very helpful with
Yeah.
everybody. We reach out, people are helpful. I've seen people stop on the side of the road to help people they didn't know, which is a really good thing. So, what are some of the trials and tribulations when it comes to running a team? Because, I know a lot of kayak anglers that are team guys and sponsored guys, and we're a very diverse group, right? And some of us are very eccentric. So I feel like, to corral all these different personalities and get everyone going in one direction takes some finesse. And there's probably some trials and tribulations you have in there. So like, what are some like the difficulties that you run into running the team?
Uh, some of it is, the personality stuff kind of, it's not that big a deal because we're all not like in a locker room together every day. It's just, everybody's spread out, or what do you live in different parts of the country. There's some things that where we just didn't mesh with someone, and there's always fault that can be done or lessons that you take from it to learn how to not do things again. But for the most part, it's really mostly about my relationship with that angler because I'm the one they contact, when they're looking for, a sponsorship with Torquedo or Cigar or something like that. Um, and then other than that, it's just kind of, we all have went through a spell where we would do our thing on social media that wasn't always positive, and so you might have to just message every now and again there that like, hey, you're representing and making a brand name here that we're trying to guard and value and keep integrity in. And but other than that, that's just the most difficult part. Really, truly is, especially like the way it is right now with retail taking such a plummet after COVID. And then with the advent, which I love forward facing sonar, so I'm not bashing it, but there's a lot of bait and tackle that's not getting bought anymore. And so now that that's happening, there's less product to go to pro staffers, like I'm guilty, a little while back, I got kind of ill one evening and, popped my mouth off about some industry stuff that I shouldn't have, but it's just because there were several no's that had happened for people that were trying to do good, trying to make it in the industry. And I slanted it like it was because we were in kayaks, and it's not. It's not. It's just, number one, it will probably go to a boat first if they have to choose because it's like, let's just say it's a Mark Daniels Jr. There's a huge value in him. huge value. One, in my opinion, one of the most valuable fishermen in the country because he's constantly working for all the GSM products, Seagar, and everything. And so, if it come down to it, and they've got to keep one out of five, a kayak would probably go just because we're not making as big an imprint. It doesn't mean our imprint's not as important because we're still marketing to 100% of the kayak world. Um, but anyway, I got a little pissed off and went on a little tirade over that, and then I shouldn't have, and that was a mistake on my part. But it's because you care about all these people that you see work hard and you want to help them. Well, now that product stuff's drying up, it's getting really hard to keep the promises of, hey, Kurt, you're on the team. We're going to help you work with Seagar, fishing online, Hobie, Torpedo, and then now we're like, we can't do that. You'll understand it because you're part of those teams, but it still sucks. Like there's a gentleman right now that deserves a lot, and it's just not there. It's not there. They're like, well, you already have three people, so and it's okay. Things change. You get people get added and dropped all the time, and you can't take it personal because most of the time, if you get dropped, if you look back, it's kind of like, yeah, I really wasn't doing much anyway. I've been guilty of it too. And so finding out how to balance that's really challenging because you don't want to upset anyone or hurt anyone's feelings or alienate them. That's the hardest part. And the second hardest part, it leads to why that's probably the hardest part, is that you make relationships with these reps and you work with them for 2 or 3 years, and then they leave for a better job or they get let go for some reason. Now that relationship with that company is probably done because it's the sales rep who makes all of our sponsorship stuff go around and the marketing director. Well, when they leave, it's brand new people. So they don't know the 3 year history that shows that you helped sell, 7 Humminbird units, and that's pretty challenging. And it happens in a boat world, year after year. They're used to it, but a lot of us aren't. So,
Yeah, and that's one of the things that you brought up is not taking it personal. It's so important not to, because most of the time when they make these decisions, it has nothing to do with you personally. It's just the economics of the situation.
yeah,
It's like they just can't afford to do it, right? Because honestly, if a company could just always say yes, they would. Like if that just generated them money to say yes, they would. And they're really, and these companies have a budgets that they have to work with, and as times get tighter, those budgets shrink or disappear completely. Or a company sells. Like I've gone through multiple companies that I've had really good relationships with that they sold, and the same people stayed for the marketing end of it, but the how they were marketing changed completely. You know,
yeah.
and you just can't take it personal because and I'll use an example. Like with me, I love Maui Jim. I had Maui Jim sunglasses. I
Oh,
still
yeah.
wear them. They were one of my great sponsors. They were amazing to me. I love all the guys. Jason, I still talk to him there. He's a good dude. But the company sold, and they said they wanted to change from doing active stuff to doing lifestyle stuff, and
Yeah.
all their whole marketing switched. So like no one's left. They all went. All the money changed, and that's just how it goes. You know,
Yeah,
uh,
sunglass companies are difficult because there's so many of them, and they're so expensive unless you lose them or like me scratch them all the time. I don't care what kind of glass it is, I'm going to scratch them. That's the way it is.
you use them
Yeah,
long enough, right? You're going to get.
yeah.
But that's just an example of things changed. I didn't take it personal, man. It wasn't anybody's fault. The company sold. You can't blame them for selling. It's just how things work. They changed direction. That's just the way it is. So you just don't take it personally. You just got to move on. I didn't pick up another sunglass company because I love Maui Jims and I still wear them. I still buy them. I mean, they fit my head, blah, blah, blah. But, and I just think that's important because I see some people take it personally online. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's easy for people to vent online. And I don't think it's a positive thing if you're trying to work your way in the industry. Speaking of working your way in the industry, what would you tell the people that are coming up right now? Because it's tough right now. The marketing budgets are slim, right? I mean, everything What would you tell someone who's trying to break in now? What would be some advice to a younger angler?
Figure out who you want to work with, and just understand you're already buying that product anyway. Um, when you, because they could, these reps, they or these sponsors, they've been doing this a lot longer than we have, so they can read a taker a mile away. We had a guy, a funny quick story at the classic. Me and Sassy Dan were standing there talking to this one vendor, um, and great vendor, good people. And this gentleman came up and just, excused himself in, just entered right into our conversation and said, "Hey, I need to ask you something." And so we just stepped back. He's a customer and we're just talking. So we back up, and there was a line for free stuff, and it was a long line. And he said, "You guys follow me on TikTok. You followed me on TikTok for 2 years now. Can I skip line since y'all follow me?" And he was like, "No, sir, I can't." And he started cussing. "This is, effing stupid. Y'all should have 3 lines." And it's a classic. You can't have 3 lines. I mean, and he was just fire hot. So what's going to happen is I'm going to miss out and this, that, and the other. And I'm just like, and he was like, "Sir, I'm sorry, but it's not fair to everyone that's been in line for 30, 40 minutes." And he was just like, "Well, I'm going to unsubscribe and unfollow y'all." And he was just fire hot. And I was like, "What are you giving away?" And it was like a $40 rod, but still, I mean, it was still something free. But and so that people could see that coming a mile away. So to answer your question to the younger person, um, you know, the number one, I had a conversation with a guy today that called me. Number one would be to watch people that you see doing good. Don't think just because you can't be a Greg Blanchard. I could never do that, but I can watch Greg Blanchard and pick out. I see what he's doing right, and then I can do that too. You know, so watch somebody that you think's doing it the correct way that you respect, and then when you do that, write down your brands, 2 or 3 that you would like to work with, and go ahead and be proactive in tagging them and putting out. They really like the 15 to 30-second clips, sharing and resharing posts and stuff out. You see it, algorithms get bogged down and nobody sees it. So, I'm looking at a missile bait one's right here, and it's a great one, but 65, 70 people will share it, and then tomorrow it'll be gone. You won't ever see it again. But the reels and the clip, when you're doing that mindless scrolling, that's what they value. So figure out how to do those few things. Wear your jerseys, wear your clothing that looks good. Like if you've got a logo, make sure that stuff's nice and clean and in your images the best you can, or your videos. Um, you know, Make sure that you look yourself in the mirror, and when you make comments on things, you're not just blurting it out like we were sitting in a garage having a beer. Put some substance to it, make it clear, make it clean. Don't try to be witty, vulgar, ugly, or whatever. Just be, if you want to be a little comical, that's okay. But just make sure that you keep it like it needs to be, respectful. And before you send it, look at it and make sure that if you're doing a walkthrough to show how you rig, your rod holders, look at it, because you might have to do that 6 or 8 times till you get it good. So don't think that because I do it today, I got to release it today. Just keep doing it till you get it right. Send it to your buddies, and stuff like that. And then when you do that, because you're going to meet somebody at an ICAST and say, "Hey, Kurt, I want to be on this team and that team." And okay, man, here's my email and this, that, and the other. And he's going to not necessarily, he's not going to forget it in a negative way, but they have, I mean, man, hell, it's so hard to keep their jobs anymore anyway. They're jam packed. So they literally, like what you just said, if they could say yes all the time, that'd be way easier because they'd save time. So this rep is he's going to see your email eventually, and what he's going to do is he's just going to click around on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok for just a quick minute. Okay, yeah, he's got all right. They do a pretty decent job. Okay, next thing you know, you get $500 of free such and such. And that means a lot. And you can even say, I've heard people say, well, $500 of Picasso only cost Picasso such and such. Correct, but it still cost you $500. So you just saved $500. Don't look a gift horse in the mouth. And, that's because that's just a company that supports anglers well. But that's the thing is, make it look good.
And it
And if
costs
you
them
make it look
money.
good, yeah, it does. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it doesn't cost them $500, but you don't realize it's not just even the money, it's the time that they're allotting for you to even talk. That all adds up. I mean, that's more work for them, so it's so important, like you said, to be respectful, be thoughtful when you communicate with these guys. And you know sometimes good sponsors will say no will say no once. And if you really want to work with them and you keep trying to develop something and develop a relationship, sometimes those situations can turn into really good sponsors, because times are tough. They're not going to be able to say yes sometimes when they want to say yes.
Right.
Because they may like you, they may like what you're doing, they may see the value in what you're doing, but they just, I mean, right now, next, is tough times. And if you can help them get out of those tough times, those companies will remember you later, because they're people in those companies, and they're going to remember.
Yeah. Yeah. We've got, we like our mine and Daniel's Tennessee and Georgia Bass Nation stuff. We've got sponsors on our banner that we don't have anything from this year because they don't have it, but they've helped us in the past. I mean, and they've given more than their share, more than we could give them a return on. Because, like don't go to a sponsor unless you know you can give them a return, because I would just feel guilty. And so there's people that have sponsored us that, we didn't give them the return I think we should have. They're happy with it and they voiced that. But for us, we want to continue to promote them, for a little while longer until they can come back around. And they will. I know them personally, and they will, but they just don't have it this year. So they're going to stick around with us, and that means a lot because when I have to go to a Shimano rep and ask, our Shimano team is Ewing Miner, Ryan Lambert, and Jim Ware. Well, those three people, they send people in because people see it and they're like, hey man, what do you throw that swim bait on? Well, I throw it on a SLX XT, because it's a good value thing. And you don't, yeah, you can buy a Bantam and you won't sling the guts out of it, but that's $400 reel. An XT is 130 that you could rebuild a couple times and have that thing 6-8 years, and because you're not throwing big swim baits all year long anyway, or so you use it a couple 2 or 3 months out of the year like an umbrella rig. But when we first started doing this, Isaac Payne was our rep, and he since on moved. He helped build the Chris Zaldane swim bait. He's built a lot of stuff with Guggen and Bass Mafia. Now he's with Mustad. And Mustad, if you'll go into any store now and look at Mustad, their packaging's changed, but all of their hooks, VMC Redline makes, in my opinion, right now the best hook, and BKK, but the VMC Redlines, but they're expensive, like $7 for 5-pack of EWG. Ooh. But like their Neko hook, man, when you feel it tick, you just start reeling. You do nothing. It just, I don't know how it cuts in so good, but it just does. But anyway, I had to go to him, and he was like, well, and he's a very smart man. And what he does, and I loved it, was he would let you explain. He would make you explain to him, he would ask you these questions that would have you answer, and that would plead your case for you. He would say, well, what is this? Because we don't know the things that he knows, and he knows that. So instead of him putting you on a stand and making you plead your case, he would give you the questions he needed answered. And that's where I learned a lot too. Was I know this rep that I respect above anyone needs these questions answered. Then when I go to Rather Outdoors for Strike King and Lose for like Jordan Marshall, I already have those questions answered. And so they don't even have to ask me anything. They're like, oh, okay, hell, he's already got all this together here. So, okay, no problem, but the biggest thing is when you're at these trade shows, talk to them, get to know them, get a card, shake their hand, and then leave. most of the time, don't ask for anything there, dude. They're so busy, slammed. Just get the card, shake their hand, and get back to them later.
Yeah. If you
And
go to
whenever you
iCash,
email them, yeah, email them your links too to your social media, so they don't have to look for it. And do stuff like that.
make it easy for them to see who you are.
Yeah,
So, I mean, this is like amazing advice for someone coming up and trying to get into it. And the different teams, like how big is the dugout team? Like how large geographically do you cover? Like your teammates? Like how far away is your farthest teammate from the shop? I'm just curious. You guys seem to be pretty big.
yeah. I think we got in the mid 30s ish probably. Um, let's see, we've got pretty much Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia. Ewing's Virginia, but he's in college here. Jesse is in Coleman, Alabama. Dan's in Birmingham. Gino's in Florida. Just kind of scrolling through here real quick. Christine's Tennessee. Riser's Tennessee. I'd say, well, Broach is in South Carolina. So, I mean, no, we're pretty much right now. We did have, like, Abby was on our team for a little while, but then he was able to get a pretty good gig with some other places that would conflict a little bit. But the biggest thing was there was some compensation there that he deserves. And so he could get that. He was in Pennsylvania. That's pretty much it. I mean, we travel a lot when we fish, but it's pretty much the tri-state area. Sprinkle in some in Florida and South Carolina because Bennett's in South Carolina. He's in college at Clemson. I don't know if you got to see it or know who he is, Bennett and all. He got third for the second time in the Classic, and he's got a freaking awesome picture. He's holding his trophy behind his back. It's like back to back third place. It's pretty yeah.
That's pretty amazing, and to go to 2 championships and get third at both of them. That's
yeah.
He's one to keep an eye on. I feel like he could possibly be like one of the major players in the future.
Yeah, I agree. Right now we're in a weird time where you got to be established and have a good job to be able to afford to travel, or you got to be so young that you don't have all this overhead like a mortgage and everything to still be able to go and do
it. Right. I feel a little jealous too of these guys when they're in college because I'm like, God, man, if I was in college, this would be so much easier, right? You just pick up and go. It doesn't matter. You don't have any responsibilities. You probably don't have a car payment or a house payment. Yeah.
Yeah,
it's so
dudes
true.
just they pile in, like 6 in a Volkswagen, and eat gas station food, and then come in and lay the wood and cash a check and go on back home.
Kick all our asses.
Yeah, no kidding.
So with the dugout team, and you're breaking it down, so you're helping anglers feed towards certain sponsors that they're interested in, right? Is that the right perception of it?
Uh-huh.
Like how are you choosing to like who because you're kind of like the gate master, that's a hard position to be in.
Yeah, especially when you've got several people asking for the same gig, so to speak. And it's like pure fishing. We got 4 people on that staff, not including Christine. And so that's kind of and for me, even if you don't give a return the first year, I just count that as a wash. And you got to give an angler 2 years to figure it out. Because in the meantime, but that's one of the other drawbacks is when you get on these teams and you've got that gusto, you're ready to go. You're gonna do Instagram, you're gonna do this, you're gonna record your travels, and then you get tired of doing it and you no longer do it. Well, that was kind of part of your agreement with your sponsor to do. So you still have that link to get your, $6,000 of product a year. You're still using that link, but you're not, so
Yeah, that makes it tough because sometimes you have to, I imagine, be the bearer of bad news, so to
yeah.
speak.
Yeah. And you wish you could just do it over text like a middle school breakup, but you can't. Yeah. Yeah. We've all had some difficult conversations in life, and you just hate that some of them in fishing can, sometimes they cost you friendships, but I mean, that's just because we don't all react the way we should when we should all the time. So,
And some of what you said there too was that you get tired of doing it. It is kind of a grind, because if your leverage with a sponsor is your social media, you got to keep it up. You can't,
yeah.
you just got to keep doing it and keep putting it out there and being positive. But there's other ways to leverage it. I feel like some of the anglers that do well, that speak well, don't always have the best social media, but they do well in tournaments, so they can leverage
Yeah.
that. There's different ways to leverage stuff. I feel like to get your foot in the door. Um, is there one that you can think of that maybe other people don't know about as an angle to help get your foot in the door? I mean, obviously, social media. We all see that, right? I mean, that's like the number one thing I feel like they look at. Number two, I would say would be like placing in tournaments and getting that media exposure. What would be like the third one in that list?
It's kind of twofold. Go to shows and offer to help at the booths. Like I said, not obviously, well, I actually did it. Matt McKee here in Tennessee, McKee Outdoors. Marshall introduced me to him years and years ago, and so I like to hustle stuff. So Matt, literally, I drive 2 hours to his shop. I'd pick up 5 to 30 fishing rods, boxes of baits and stuff that people down here in Chattanooga would buy because we don't really have stores that sell higher end bait and tackle. And so everywhere I worked, dude, hell, I was bringing stuff back here all the time. And so started working with Matt. And so then I started going to the East Tennessee Fishing Expo, which if you ever get to go to that one, that is one of the good ones. And so I started working with him, and then I met the Shimano reps and the Megabass reps. So then we go to the classics and stuff, and I'm working the Megabass booth, just there, just helping out. And then if you want to be a part of a shop, go to that shop and just watch things and help them load kayaks in and out. I mean, we got 3 or 4 people on our team now that would just come by the shop and help, and help. And then what they did was they got a bird's eye view of, hey, there's a lot of times really not that much money in what this person just walked out with. Because you come in and buy a Garmin, yeah, you just spent $3,000, but we made 17%, and so you got a 10% discount code. Now what, and so you walk out of there with a Yak Attack Black Pack that, let's just say, we got 30% on is our terms, but you got to calculate shipping in too. So we'll get a Yak Attack order with a $550 shipping bill. Well, we eat the shipping. We don't add it to the MSRP price. So now that 30% goes down to about 20. And so now you got 10% off the coupon too, you know? So man walks out with $1,000 worth of stuff and you made $90 off of it. Maybe sometimes, that's a little low, but that's a
Now
lot.
that could be very accurate.
It could be because you got to buy so much volume too. Like you go back into these storerooms and you're like, well, why don't they have this? Well, it's because most of the time you order thing in sixes, 6, 9, 12s, 24s, 48s, And so when you're sitting there and you're thinking, we're fixing to get hit a big run here, we got to order, 2 dozen catch boards and 2 dozen of this black pack and a dozen of these. Well, you just dropped 10 grand, and you got to pay that off in a certain amount of time. And we don't take out credit loans. We pay on the terms. And so, which is a great thing to be able to do. It's a blessing. Um, but when that happens, you got to sell stuff quick, especially when you got a $50,000 kayak order coming in or a $35,000 electronics order coming in. I mean, it's sink or swim, man. And that's how both Jamie and I operate. We jump in and then figure out how to swim. That's the way we do most everything we do, and it just works. God blesses us. But that's the thing. So we had the guys come into the shop and just do work, and then they learn how to do maintenance on kayaks, which makes them valuable on Facebook and social media when somebody makes a comment and they're like, "Man, that dugout guy helped me out." And then it's not manipulative, but it's part of how you build relationships. Is you help them, they help you. And so, but that's the two biggest things: is go help out at shows and go help out at the shop, the best that you can.
I can't tell you how many trucks of kayaks I've unloaded
Yeah,
myself. You know what I mean? Because you help out when you can. And a lot of
yeah,
times when the truck shows up, that's a tough day for a small shop, because if there's only
it is.
3 people working there, one person has to stay. 2 people unloading kayaks out of a big semi that's a lot of work for just 2 people.
Absolutely. Plus, like you said, when they're trying to, you got people like we sell live bait too, so there's people running in and out nonstop, and you got that. I always felt awful because we would try to schedule a pro staff, but it seemed like our trucks would come on Tuesday or Thursday. Well, 99% of the people work, and then we've only got about 6 anglers that live within 2.5 hours of. So, and we do something like 1 or 2 shop days a year, just so that they get to know the staff, the in-house staff get to know the anglers, so that when the angler calls and needs something, they've got a relationship. And plus it's just paying your dues a little bit, and just come down and help move stuff around, meet customers, help sell stuff. And when you do that, you get to express the gratitude and see how much people really do appreciate what you do for them.
I mean, yeah, I really hope that people are paying attention to this that are starting out, because this is like a playbook I think we're putting out there today, Steve. I think or you really, you're putting out a really good playbook for the newer guys, or people who are, not even if you're newer, if you're just deciding now to try to get sponsors. This is like a really good playbook. These are all if you do these things, you will get sponsored. Everything that you just laid out here, you will get sponsored. If you just follow what Steve says, you will get sponsored. Well, Steve, I've had you on here for about an hour. I don't want to take up any more of your time this evening. I want to thank you so much for coming on and just giving out some of your knowledge. You're a super busy guy, and I really appreciate you cutting out some time. Is there anyone you want to thank? Your wife, family, sponsors? Here's your chance to thank anyone you want.
Yeah, it sounds cliche, but I thank God for putting me in a position to be able to do this, and He opened a lot of doors, and I stepped in a lot of holes along the way, but without that opening up, I would still just be beating my head against the wall. And like my wife, she's very supportive of all of this, and Daniel Davis helps me. It's so funny. My wife, I'll be telling her something. I say, "You remember this, or this?" And she says, "No, that was not me. That was Daniel that was with you." And oh man, she wears me out. She's such a funny woman. But yeah, but no man. And then AJ, because like I said, I was just kind of just going to just rattle it off. I was just done, and AJ helped me get in it. AJ helped convince me to do the Bass Nation stuff, and when doors opened for the other stuff, he supported me every step of the way there. And obviously Lambert and Koza and the Dugout people, and I've just got a lot of good friends, a lot of good relationships, you included. And I appreciate everything everybody does, because I ask a lot of questions because I don't know, and I need y'all's perspective and stuff on things. Otherwise, you get flatlined. And so hopefully we got some tweaks and changes coming up soon. Hopefully we can get that announced as quick as we can get that worked out. But yeah, they just keep it in the road, and everybody's in the same wagon, so let's don't shoot each other. So.
Yeah, that's so true. We're all in the same wagon. Let's all just get along good enough to go in the same direction.
Matter of fact, I got my Grateful Dead shirt on, so let's just keep that.
Yeah. Keep that spirit alive.
Keep that vibe, yeah. Heck yeah. But yeah, man, I appreciate you, Kurt. I appreciate it a lot. Fixing to head out to the little granddaughters. Got softball games here in a little bit, so.
Well, good luck at the softball games tonight. And I want to thank everybody for listening, and to let everybody know too that has made it all the way through this podcast. in April, we're going to have a special giveaway from Fishing Online. So it'd be a good chance for everyone to listen a little bit closer in April. Just letting a little juice out now. We'll go over more of it later. Thank you all for listening, and we'll see you all later.